Thank you very much for joining me on this webinar. Today we're going to be talking about everything that you always want to know about the right way to launch a product. Now, us product managers seem to spend an awful lot of our time either launching new products or launching new versions of our existing products. Now, it's just one part of a job of being a product manager, but it's a really important part, because if you don't get the start of a product's life cycle correct, then you're going to have a lot of troubles with that product later on down the line. So if you do it right at the start, then you have a good chance of generating a lot of sales and a lot of profits for your product. And we're going to be talking about the things that you need to do from day one. Okay, during this webinar, we're actually going to cover 5 separate things. The first one is we're going to talk about the types of jobs that your customers are going to be hiring your product to do. It's sort of a different way of looking at market segmentation. We'll take a look at traditional segmentation, but we're also going to talk about sort of a novel way of doing the exact same thing. Next, we're going to talk about market needs. You know, your product's never going to be successful if your customer doesn't need it. So we're going to talk about how you can actually measure your customer's need for your product. Next, we'll talk about competitive alternatives. It would be fantastic if your product was the only solution out there, but all too often that's not the case. What that means is that you have to be aware of who else is out there. What's interesting is that you also have to be aware of non-competitive alternatives. In other words, your customers actually have lots of different ways of solving their problems, and as a product manager, you need to be aware of each one of them. Next, we'll talk about company distinctions. You know, if I'm a customer and I'm looking to solve my problem, I'll look at everybody who's providing me a solution and I'm going to make a selection. The question is, what makes your company stand out? What makes your company different from all the other companies that have a similar sort of solution? And finally, we're going to end up talking about a solution USP. And USP stands for Unique Selling Proposition. We're going to take all the previous 4 steps and collect that information and use it to create a very concise statement that defines exactly what your product does, why you're the company that should be selected, and why your product is the product that customers should select. And this is going to be really critical as you move forward in the whole product launch process, because you're going to have to describe over and over again why the company's doing it, both to internal people and also to external customers. So if you nail it down right off the bat, you'll have that taken care of as you go farther into the process. Now, we should probably start off by having me give you an introduction as to exactly who I am. So I am Dr. Jim Anderson. I've been a product manager for 25 years now. During that time period, I've had an opportunity to work for some very large companies, including Boeing, Siemens, Alcatel, and Verizon. I've also had an opportunity to work for some startups, Arcatel, Santera, and Enlogic. And I would like to be able to tell you that every single product that I've been responsible for has been a runaway success. But the answer is it's not really true. During my 25-year career, I've been responsible for 10 different products. And some of them have been very successful, and some of them have not. And I've learned both from my successes and from my failures. What I'm hoping to be able to do during this particular webinar is to be able to share with you my insights, both from my successes and my failures, and make sure that you don't have to go through the same learning experiences that I did. So let's get on with it. Okay. So before we dive into the whole product launch process, what I want to do with you is I want to have a talk with you about what it takes to become a successful product manager. Because if you're not successful as a product manager, then it doesn't really matter about your product. Your product cannot possibly be a success if you're not a success in your job. So in order to be a successful product manager, it really takes 3 separate things. I call this the stomp pyramid of product manager power. So it starts with attitude. It's how you view your job, it's how you view your product, it's how you view your skills as a product manager. And then it goes to skills and tactics, and these are where you know what a product manager needs to do, and it's how good you're at doing it. And finally, it rests on a base of specialized knowledge. Everybody's product is different. Everybody's product competes in a different market. The more you know about your product and the more you know about the market, the more successful you're going to be as a product manager. Now, it turns out that these 3 sides of the product manager power pyramid aren't all balanced. It turns out that attitude really is about 80 to 90% of a product manager's success. How you view yourself and how you view your product is actually a lot more important than your mastery of any sort of product manager skills or tactics, or for that matter, your knowledge of specialized knowledge about your product or your market. So making sure that you have a positive attitude, that you think and believe that you are a good product manager and that your product is a good product and that it will make your customers' lives better when they use it, is the number one thing that you can do as a product manager in order to both make yourself successful and make your product successful. And all too often there's too many product managers who think that there's some sort of knowledge, either product related or market related, that they need to have in order to be successful. And the answer is no. It all lies in your attitude. Now, attitude is a delicate thing. How can you control your attitude? What's interesting is it all starts with inputs, and so this is a very interesting question for every product manager. Where do you get your inputs? Who are you spending your time with? You know, some salespeople will be very excited about your product. They'll look forward to opportunities to sell it. Some salespeople will not be excited about your product. They'll think that it's not going to be successful. They'll tell you that they can't sell it to customers, that customers don't want it. Same thing with some of your management. Some of your management will probably support you and your product, and some management will have other products, other offerings that they want to focus on and not yours. And the question is where are you spending your time? Because those are the inputs that you're taking. And the inputs that come into you drive your thoughts as a product manager, right? Everything is related here. Your thoughts then drive your expectations for your product. You as the product manager are the one who has the expectations for the product. And based on your expectations, that will be in charge of what kind of creation of features and initiatives and programs you come up with for your product, and that ultimately leads to the success of your product. In Formula One racing, they have a saying that says, in racing, they say, that your car goes where your eyes go. And what this means is you never look at the wall, because if you look at the wall, you're going to drive your car into the wall. So in product management, you're in charge of your inputs. And are you hanging out with people who are giving good, positive inputs about your product, telling you what's right, what problems it's solving for customers, how customers are using it, how it's better than the competition? Or are you hanging out with people who are giving you negative inputs, talking about why it's too expensive, why it's not meeting customers' expectations, why you're getting a lot of returns, etc., etc., etc.? You need to manage your inputs, make sure that they're positive, so you create positive energy that goes into your product, and so your product will be a success. It sounds a little hocus pocus, but trust me on this one. As a product manager, you need to make sure that you have the right attitude so that everyone else who's working on your product shares your attitude. The STOMP product management system is designed to give you all the knowledge and all the skills that you need to turn your product into a big success. Okay? We're going to start out with the prepare and planning portion of it, where you get things set up for you to be successful. Later on in the process, we move into do, and then finally we end up into deliver, where you actually deliver your product into your customers' hands. So it's all part of a carefully executed process. Now there's 7 different stages to the STOMP product management process. Today we're just going to be talking about the no, because the no stage is the stage that's most closely associated with product launches. Okay? In the no stage, what we're trying to do is we're trying to answer one critical question. What does your customer really want? And if you can't answer this question correctly, your product will never be a success. But if you follow the steps in the no process, you'll come up with the right answer, and you'll be sure during the rest of the process that you have the right product that's going to meet your customer's needs. Right off the bat, in the no stage, what we're going to talk about is product jobs, which is sort of an interesting way of talking about market segmentation. Because really, your customer isn't buying your product. What they're really doing is they have a problem they want to solve, and that's the job that your product can do for them. So let's talk about this. There's traditional market segmentation, and as product managers, I think we all sort of at a fundamental level understand what market segmentation is all about. You really can't sell to everybody in the world, so you have to take a look at everybody and break them down into a specific group of people that you can sell to. But something that you should keep in mind is that market segmentation is not just about your customers. It also incorporates limitations that your company may bring to the table. For example, if I had a product that I could sell in England, but for whatever reason I didn't have the ability to export it to the rest of Europe, then I could have a lot of customers in Spain who wanted to buy my product, but it wouldn't matter. I would have to segment the market based only on customers who were in England, because they're the only ones that I could ship to. So keep in mind that market segmentation isn't just about people who want your product, but it can also have a lot to do with your company and whether or not you're going to be able to actually reach those customers. So let's talk about how you go about segmenting the market as a product manager. The great thing is everybody starts out in the same place. So you look at the possible market and you say, hey, it consists of everyone in the world. You'd love it if everyone in the world could buy your product, but unless you're selling air or water, that's just not going to be the case. So the next thing you do is you make that a little bit smaller. You break it down to just the people who do the thing that can have the problem that your product solves. So as a case in point here, if you made a better hammer, if you were going to bring a hammer to market, okay, the people who do the thing that can have the problem that your product solves would be people who are building things, right? Who are putting nails into wood. Those would be your target market. Now we're going to make the market a little bit smaller because we're going to move on to people who have the problem that your product solves. Let's say that your hammer is a little bit larger than every other hammer, so you're able to drive nails into wood quicker, better, faster, and straighter than other hammers. Well, the people who would have the problem would be people who aren't doing a good job of hitting nails into wood, or when they put the nails into wood, they're not going in straight. So that would be the problem. You'd have to have people who knew that they had that problem. We'll go make the market even a little bit smaller. It would be people who might buy a product like yours. So it would be somebody who would be on the market looking for a new hammer. If somebody had already bought a hammer, well, then they're probably not going to be looking for another hammer. If somebody had decided to solve the problem in a different way, like hiring somebody else to do their nailing, they're not going to be looking for it. You need somebody who currently understands that they have a problem, nails aren't going in straight, and that they're looking for a better hammer, and that's the product that you bring to market. And finally, we move all the way to the bottom of the inverted pyramid, and this is people who might buy your product. Okay, so this is people who have a hammer, who know they have a problem, that they're not driving their nails in straight, and who have not already purchased or selected some other solution at this point in time, and who are open to buying a brand new hammer. What you can notice that the little triangle at the bottom is much smaller than the overall triangle, and that's very important because that's what segmenting the market is all about. Your company doesn't have enough money, doesn't have enough time, and you don't have enough energy to try and sell your product to the entire world. So instead, by segmenting the market, you can narrow it down to a group of people that you can identify, and those are the people who are most likely to buy your product, which means you can focus your energy on marketing to them, getting in contact with them, understanding what they want your product to do, and making changes to your product to better meet their particular needs. So when you create a segment, that segment has to have some very specific characteristics, and there's three very important characteristics of any market segment that you define as a product manager. The first one is that it has to be homogeneous. Okay, so within that market segment there has to be a common need. In our example, it would have to be people who are having problems hammering nails into wood. Okay, so there has to be a shared need. The second characteristic of a segment that you make has to be distinction. It has to be different from other groups. You have to be able to say whether or not a person belongs to a group or doesn't belong to a group. In our particular case, it's people who do hammering, right? If you don't do hammering, you wouldn't belong to the group. If you do, then you would belong to the group. And then finally, the reaction has to be the same. So if you have a marketing message and you reach out to a segment, you would want them all to react pretty much the same way. way. Get excited about the product or completely ignore it. All right. And the key thing, or the reason that the reaction is so important, is because what you're trying to do is come up with a generic marketing approach that's going to work for that segment. The last thing in the world that you want to have to do is to create a unique marketing program for each person who's in the segment. That'd be fine if there was only a few people in the segment, but generally our segments are fairly large. So I've created actually a free gift for you, and after this webinar is over, you will get a copy of it. I've created a free report called Market Segmentation Secrets, and in this document I'm going to explain to you the 9 things that your segments need to have in order to be useful to a product manager. And these 9 things are critical because when you are segmenting your market, you need to double check using these 9 items and confirm that your segments match up to them. And if they do, then congratulations, you're done segmenting your market. If they don't, you need to keep working on it and perhaps have to drill down farther to clearly segment your market. So this is really valuable, and you'll have it as a free report after this webinar is over. So let's take a look at some market segmentation examples. So everybody knows Apple Computer Corporation. Turns out Apple breaks their market up into 6 distinct segments. Take a look at it. Home, education, small business, large business, government, and all others. So you can see that each one of these is very distinct, right? So the home market and the education market are 2 completely different markets, and there's really no overlap between those. Same thing with small business, large business, government, etc., etc., etc. You can see that Apple has the ability to create marketing programs that are going to be able to target each one of these market segments by itself. And Apple can take a look at an individual and figure out which market they fit into. Now, it's entirely possible somebody might belong to multiple markets, but they would be playing a different role. For example, a teacher may belong to the education market, but a teacher also has a home life, and so they would have a separate identity for that. Now, you don't always have to divide your market up this way. There was a candy bar company that broke up their market or segmented their market based on what was called oral satisfiers. So in other words, sort of alternatives to their product. Candy, cookies, soft drinks, and bag chips, right? So they segmented their market that way so they could stay aware of what other options their customers had. Now, how can you segment your customers? Well, basically we all generally have 2 types of customers, right? Either we're selling to end users, consumers, business to consumer, or B2C, or else we're selling to businesses, business to business, B2B. Okay, if you're selling to consumers, then the interesting thing is how do you want to divide those consumers up? Traditionally, we do it by age, family size, gender, economic status, basically how much money do they make, where are they actually located, and you can dive in even farther. You can take a look at lifestyles and values and life stage, and which are very, very detailed looking into your customers. Now, if you're going after businesses, you're going to have to use a completely different set of criteria. Size of the business, who do they sell to, where are they located at, where do they get their supplies, what type of products do they offer, what's their reputation, pricing, distribution, etc., etc., etc. Now, what's interesting is if you're in the business of selling to distributors who then sell to customers, you may actually have to do this twice. So you'll have to do the B2B, you'll have to divide up your resellers into different segments, but then you may actually have to do the same thing and figure out for the resellers what their customers look like, because ultimately it's the customers that you want to buy your product. You need the distributors to buy it, but then you also need the customers, and so you'd potentially have to do this job twice. Okay. Now, that's what we call traditional market segmentation. If your boss tells you to segment the market, that's probably what he or she's talking about. If you read a traditional textbook, that's what they're talking about. The issue, though, is there's some problems with that. So what's wrong with traditional market segmentation? So the way traditional market segmentation works is that you group your customers into segments, and once you've done that, then you design a product for the average customer in that segment. Well, okay. But here's the problem. More often than not, customers don't match the average customer, which means that a product's success is a little bit of a gamble. You can't say whether or not a customer is actually going to select your product because that customer may not match closely to that average customer. Right? So it becomes a bit of a gamble. Every year, 30,000 new products are introduced, and about 90% of those products fail. And the reason is because products just aren't matching what the average customer wants. So we need a better way. Good news, there is a better way. So in the better way, you take a look at the market from your customer's eyes, okay? And you understand that customers are hiring products just like yours to do a job, okay? Now this is a different way of looking at it. Now what you need to do is understand what jobs customers are hiring for. Okay. And then you design a product to do the job. Now when you deliver the product to the market, you have to deliver it in a way so that you're telling the customers what job it's intended to be used for. Okay, this is a completely different way of doing things, and it changes what goes on as a product manager. As product managers, we need to understand what jobs customers are hiring for, and then of course we have to design a product to do that job, and when we deliver it, we have to deliver it so it enforces its intended use. Now, the classic story in marketing, of course, is that nobody ever buys a drill because they want a drill. Instead, they buy a drill because what they want is holes. Now, if you take a look at what a drill does, you see there's sort of three characteristics of what it does. Size of the hole that it can drill, the depth of the hole that it can drill, and sort of how long it takes to actually drill those holes. So if you're a product manager who segments the market traditionally, you discover men between 35 and 45 are the primary buyers of drills, and then you go ahead and design a product that has maybe a horsepower of power. It can accept any sort of drill. It comes in multiple colors. It's got a super grip, which are all fine, but you're missing the point, because what customers really care about is a drill that can produce holes of any size, a drill that can produce holes that are of any depth, and maybe a drill that produces more holes faster. So hiring or designing a product to fill a job is a lot better than hiring or creating a product to fill a particular market segment. Okay. Now there's three aspects to every job when you're looking at what job your product can do. Knowing how to improve a product doesn't really come from understanding what we call the typical customer. Remember, that's the customer who sort of looks like everybody in the segment, but rather it comes from understanding the job that customer is going to be hiring the product to do. As a product manager, your goal has to be to improve both the social, the functional, and the emotional dimensions of the product so that it does its job better than everybody else on the market. And two great examples of that are, first off, eBay. eBay wasn't really set up as an auction company. eBay was set up by its creator as a way for people to get rid of junk that they didn't want. So that's the job that people hire eBay for. Another example is the Swiffer brand of home cleaning products. And this might be sort of a little bit US based, but basically Swiffer is like a disposable mop. So it's basically a mop that you then put a replaceable piece of fabric on. You clean up the spill or clean the floor, then you peel off the disposable piece of fabric, throw it away, and it's ready to be reused. And it has been very, very successful. Now, an interesting thing happens when you start taking a look at what jobs your product does. More often than not, what you're going to discover is that your market gets larger. So a great example of that would be Arm & Hammer's baking soda. Now, baking soda is a baking product. You use it when you're making cakes or cookies or things like that. You add it to the ingredients and everybody eats it. Well, when they did some market surveys of what people were doing with their product, they had sort of a stunning discovery. People add baking soda to their laundry so that their clothes smell fresher. People put baking soda in the refrigerator so that it takes up odors and makes the refrigerator smell better. People use baking soda for a whole bunch of personal health activities, and baking soda actually works very well as an abrasive for cleaning. So when you take a look at what jobs customers are using your product for, more often than not, what you're going to discover is that your market is a lot larger than you may have originally anticipated. Okay, so once you understand what jobs your customers are going to hire your product for, now you have to take a look at the market needs. Do customers actually need to have that job done? So let's take a look. So market needs, there's three goals when you're taking a look at market needs. First off, you want to identify the potential market for the concept. You want to estimate the size of that particular market, and then you're going to want to document why customers would buy from your company as opposed to all of the other alternatives that are currently available to them. So when we're defining the solution, when we're defining what your product's actually going to look like, you've got sort of two different ways you can go about doing it. And this really all depends on the size of your market. You know, if I was selling a 4-carat diamond, the market for that product is going to be pretty small because of its very, very high price, right? It would have relatively few customers. Potentially, I'd know all of my customers, or I'd be able to get in contact with all my customers. I may have a direct business relationship with them. Because I have a small market that I'm going after, you know, what my product does is going to be defined by their request for proposals, or RFPs. Any contracts or orders that they place will specify in excruciating detail exactly what my product needs to be able to do. I can have meetings with my customers because there's not that many customers. And issues such as warranty or repair data, and also customer representatives, are other great sources of information. And this is all possible because there's not that many customers for my product. Now, if you have an indirect relationship with your customers, and if there's a lot of customers who make up your market, you have to take a different approach. Okay? You may be working through distributors and resellers who are actually going to be the interface to your customers. You may not actually have any contact with your customers. And if this is the case, then you're going to have to do a couple different things in order to get feedback directly from your customers. Surveys and focus groups are great ways to get direct customer feedback. Market research, interviews, customer service feedbacks, you know, these are all great ways to get the voice of the customer to be brought back inside of your company, so that as you as a product manager are working to define your product going forward, you've got the customer basically whispering in your ear. Now, I'm going to give you a free report. It's called How to Create Product Requirements That Actually Work. And remember, product requirements actually serve multiple audiences, right? So I'm going to give you a 10-step system that's going to help you create product requirements. They're going to capture the voice of the customer, which is the most important thing, but it's also going to teach you how to provide enough detail in your requirements so that your development team is going to be able to create the product that you're actually looking for. And that's a free report that I'm going to be providing to you once this webinar is done. All right, let's get on to sizing your market. And this is something your senior executives are always very, very interested in, because they're trying to figure out whether or not it's going to be worth their time, energy, and effort to develop the product that you're currently discussing. Okay, so a market sizing activity can be divided into 3 parts, and I call them TAM, SAM, and SOM. Okay, and TAM stands for Total Available Market, and so this is everyone who has the problem that your product solves. So remember, when we're talking about the hammer, this would be everybody who uses a hammer to drive a nail into wood, okay, and who has problems doing that. It goes in, you know, crooked, or doesn't go in at all, or they're not strong enough to do it. It doesn't matter. Everybody who has the problem. Now, SAM is the served available market, and this is everybody who might buy a product like yours. So what we're excluding here is people who have either already purchased a solution because they're no longer interested in your product, or people who've decided to live with the way things are. They're not interested in buying a solution. They're not interested in spending money to change their current situation. Okay, exclude all those people, and you pretty much have your served available market. Now, making it even smaller, we go to share of market, and this is basically everyone who might buy your product. Okay, and that's your target. This is what you're trying to capture. Now, here's an important life lesson for you. The one thing that you don't want to do is to say, hey, listen, I think I can capture some percentage of the SAM. Okay, 1%, 2%, 5%, because that's always the wrong way to go about doing this. You know, market sizes are always changing. When you say you're going to capture a percentage, if somebody's going to hold you to that statement at the end of the year, more often than not, it's going to turn out that you were not successful. A much better way to do this, to calculate your share of market, is to say, hey, how much does my product cost? Maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $10,000, maybe it's $1 million. But then the question is, how many of these products am I going to be able to sell this year? How many will my salespeople be able to sell? How much will I be able to sell through channels, etc., etc., etc. Right? And once you do that, figure that out, and then figure out what percentage of that calculation is of the served available market. That's a much better way to calculate your share of market, SOM, than any other way, because you have something actually you can go back and check to verify that you came up with a reasonable estimate. But TAM, SAM, SOM is the best way to figure out just how big the market for your product is. Now, if you were the only product available on the market, you would be able to capture 100% of the market because there was no competition. Unfortunately, of course, as always, there are alternatives to your product. As a product manager and as somebody who's preparing to launch either a new product or a new version of your product, you need to take a look at the market and be aware of your customers' competitive alternatives. Now, this is going to get to be a little bit tricky, but what you want to do is really take on the persona or become the customer, because you want to see what they see when they look to hire a product to solve their problem. And this is actually very, very important. As a product manager, you're a lot smarter than your customers are when it comes to your market, because you have a good understanding of exactly all the solutions that are available to them. Remember, customers generally don't know all the solutions that are available to them, because this is just one part of their life, just one part of their problems, okay? So if you become your customer, you're going to be able to do a much better job of this. So when you're researching competitive alternatives, it's a two-part process. In the first part, you play the role of the customer. And you say, hey, I'm a customer, I'm having a problem. How am I going to go about finding a solution to my problem? You know, they're probably going to start how we all start today, by taking a look in Google and searching. You got to understand what terms they're going to use to go searching. Next, they'll probably talk with their peers and their colleagues and say, listen, did you have this problem? And if you did have this problem, how did you solve it? They'll probably do some research, maybe get some market reports, maybe get some comparisons, purchase some information that will allow them to compare different solutions, and then they might go to conferences or to seminars that are talking about this problem or something similar to this problem and what types of solutions are out there. Once you understand this, you're going to know exactly where you have to position your product and where you're going to have to spend your marketing time, energy, and effort. Now, researching the market also means you have to put on your product manager hat, and you need to take a look at the market and see what the competitive alternatives are from that point of view. This means you got to take a look at market research, which of course will show you all the competitors in the market. Do your own Google searches. You can then go out and you can do surveys of customers to find out exactly what types of solutions or what types of characteristics they're looking for. And of course, you always have the option of using focus groups to be able to get a good feedback from your customers, and you'll become aware of what solutions they're currently aware of. Now, when we talk about competitive alternatives, what we need to understand is not all competitive alternatives are created the same. And really, your customer is going to have three different types of options available to them. First off, there's going to be your primary competition, and these are the products that when your customer has the problem, they turn and they go, oh, I know about this product, I know I can hire it to take care of this problem that I'm currently having. These are your direct competitors, and yes, you do have to worry about them. Now, you'll also have secondary competition, and secondary competition means there's products out there that may perform some or even all of what your product does, but the customer is not necessarily thinking about them right off the bat when they're looking to hire a product to solve the problem that they're currently facing. And finally, the third group is what we call outliers. And outliers are products that you know about that exist that do some or all of the problem, take care of some or all of the problem that the customer is currently having, but the customer doesn't right now know about them. Now, the key thing to understand about outliers is that if they spend a lot of marketing or if they get written up in the news or something like that, they could very quickly go from being an outlier to being your primary competition. The other thing you have to keep in mind is that there's always the possibility the customer is going to choose to do nothing, right? And in other words, they won't select you, but they also won't select any of the competitive alternatives, okay? And so you have to understand that that's always a possibility for your customer, and you have to account for it. Now, when the customer finally makes a decision and says, listen, I'm going to have to go out and purchase a product to solve this particular problem, they're going to take a look at the different providers, and your company will be one of the providers. The question is there any characteristic for your company that's going to make you stand out in your customer's mind? And there has to be something, but you also as a product manager have to make sure that the customer is aware of what makes your company distinct. And you know, every company is different, every product is different, and so there's no one single solution to this. But it could be your company's history. You may have an incredible story of how your company went from where it was to where it is today. It may be the people that you have working for the company. They may be just extraordinary people that the customer, of course, would want to have work on solving their problem. Your company may be known for its customer service. You may bend over backwards to make sure that your customer is taken care of both before, during, and after the sale. Perhaps your prices are better than everybody else's out there. There's no problems with that, and competing on the price is actually one of the ways lots of companies make sure that they are distinctive from all the other companies out there. You know, the best example of that is Walmart, right? There's nothing really special about Walmart except they do advertise that they are the home of low prices, and they do seem to have very low prices in all their products. Your company may have a vision of the future or what a customer can accomplish by using your product that the customer may buy into, and they may say, that's a vision that I would like to have for my company, and so they may select you because of your vision. The other thing that they may want to do is they may want to select you because of the people that you're in contact with, the people that you have served before them, the people that are part of your ecosystem. They may say, listen, I want to join that team. And there could be something else. You know, it's hard to say what it is about your company that would be a perfect fit for your customer. But what you need to do is ask them and find out what they think is your distinctive advantage. Now we're going to move on to the final part, and this is the solution unique selling proposition. What is it that makes your company different from every other provider of a solution out there? So let's talk about what it takes to actually create a unique selling proposition. There's really three parts to it. Your product has to have a clear benefit for your customer, and you have to be able to state it very concisely. Okay? The customer has to have a reason to believe that they will get the benefit that you're talking about from your product. And you can't have the same benefit as everybody else. There has to be something that makes you or your company different from everybody else out there. And you're going to have to capture these three items and work them into your unique selling proposition, which once again is only like about a paragraph of text that very clearly states why you're the one that your customers should select. Okay? A good way to document a USP is to take a look at the features of your product, okay? And then for each feature, list out the following attributes. And it could be, you know, how does the customer value it? You know, what's going to be the next stage for that particular feature? What's the customer's life before they start to use it or after they use it? Is there any cost savings or revenue generation because of that particular feature? How does that match up to the competition? You know, how does the customer decision to use it evolve over time? And by the way, does this feature allow your product to work better or differently with existing products that your customer may already have in place? If you go through this for each one of the features of your product, it's going to give you the raw material that you're going to need in order to create basically a unique selling proposition for your particular product. Now I've got a free gift for you. It's called the Stomp System No Overview, and inside this document it's going to be a detailed discussion of everything that we've gone over during this webinar, including a detailed discussion of exactly how you can go about creating your unique selling proposition. Okay, so for those of you who learn better by reading the written word, congratulations, this is going to be it. And for everyone who's taken part in this particular webinar, if you need a reference or if you need an opportunity to go back and look something up, this is going to be exactly the document that you're going to want to go to. Okay, so once again, in order to become a better product manager, the key thing here is that you need to find the right way. And I think the right way is to make sure that you don't have to travel anywhere, that you can get practical and real-world information, that you're able to learn as quickly as you can to minimize your learning time. You have the ability to review all the class information. If you just see it once, it's not necessarily going to stick. If you can go back and take a closer look at it, then that's fantastic. And you need to be able to dramatically reduce your learning curve, because in all honesty, spending your time learning how to be a product manager isn't going to do you any good. You need to be the product manager. And that's what the Stomp system from Blue Elephant Consulting is all about. Okay? In this webinar, we took the no portion of the Stomp system and we broke it into its 5 separate pieces. We explored each one of those pieces in order to understand how you can use it as a product manager to become better, quicker, faster, and how to produce products that are going to be well positioned to be successful when you actually end up taking them out to market. Now we're preparing to launch yet another product here. Okay, so today we've had a chance to take an hour and go over everything that there was in the no thing. So we've covered the what you need to do. We're preparing to offer one more training session. In this particular training session, we're going to show you how to actually do it. So we're going to teach you how to master the process of researching and defining a successful, profitable product. And what we're going to do in this is we're going to take an actual real-world example and step you through the process and show you exactly what you do during each one of the stages of segmenting the market, estimating the market size, and creating your unique selling proposition. I haven't figured out the date for it yet. I do know the price. The price is going to be $197 for it, and I'll be sending out emails here shortly to let you know how you can sign up to participate in this webinar series. Thank you very much for your participation, and everyone have a good night.